Everyone in Italy has now played 26 matches. That's after those 2 games today. Significant results as well. Atalanta, still a lot of fun to watch after a 4-1 victory against Sassuolo. But we start with Inter's win against Sampdoria, which closes the gap on Juventus to 6 points. How would you sum up Inter's performance today, Gab Marcotti?
Well, it was a case where I thought Inter were devastating for long stretches. Could have easily scored 3, 4, 5 goals. Instead, they only got the 2. And then, because Inter are Inter, they end up conceding a goal. And at the end, there were some jitters. You could hear, if you were watching on TV, you could hear Conte shouting his lungs out. But in the end, they took the game home. And so, if the real Inter is the one that we saw earlier, then things bode well. And 12 games to go is a lot, and it's enough to make up 6 points. Although they really need to make up 7 points because, of course, Juve have the head-to-head. So I'm not ready to call this a 3-point race just yet, Dan. But we're not that far off unless Juve start playing better.
If they are going to close the gap, they need Romelu Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez to score goals. Both, of course, on the score sheet today.
Yeah, and both looked sharper than they did in the Coppa Italia. Christian Eriksen, I thought, was pretty instrumental as well in setting up one of the goals. And also, let's not forget Candreva, who's been playing some phenomenal football as well. And now you're not going to get that from him every game. I don't think he's capable of playing every game. But that's the good news going forward. He rotated in midfield. We saw Gagliardini in there, who's not great, but didn't do any damage and contributed some heft to the midfield. So in that sense, it's looking promising. Lukaku now up to 18 goals on the season. Took a knee to celebrate his goal as well, as was expected. So I think it's a question of, we all talked about keeping Lautaro focused. I don't think it's as simple as that. Whenever Lautaro plays badly, it's because he's thinking of Barcelona, and whenever he's playing well, he's focused on winning a title with Inter, or doing something important with Inter. I think he showed today that he certainly has impacted it, and he's not saving himself for Barcelona should that deal ever materialize. It's more of a case that he has ups and downs because he's a young player and he's a human being and he's a footballer.
Gab, it's weird being across all these different leagues because obviously Bundesliga ends next week. That's it for them. There's still a lot to go. We've still got, a third? 12 matches remaining in Italy. There's still a lot to play for regarding that title race.
You're right, Dan. There's a ton to play for. If you look at the Serie A schedule, it is the most jam-packed schedule precisely because they have to get through all 12 games. I think inevitably fatigue is going to play a part. You're going to see, I expect, a lot of rotation, a lot of disjointed football from certain teams. We still haven't seen a whole bunch of teams, including Lazio, of course, who are just 1 point off the top. So I think it's really, really tough to call. It almost feels like, it's a new season starting, except some teams are coming in with a bit of a handicap or a points penalty, if you will. But it does feel as if we're starting from scratch. I mean, Sampdoria, too, just to give you an example, they played really well. They didn't look anything like the team that Ranieri took over when they were in last place or close to it. So it does feel like we've hit the reset button. And in that sense, it feels very different, I think, from the Premier League, or even, dare I say, from La Liga, where obviously Barcelona and Real Madrid are going head-to-head.
You say all that, Gab, but there's one team that hasn't hit the reset button. Atalanta, still fun to watch.
Yeah, it was. You know what? I was so sure that they were somehow, that the break was really going to affect them. That their high energy style was gonna be a problem as the weather gets warmer, and they could have been 4-0 up at halftime. Instead, I think they were just 3-0 up against Sassuolo. Sassuolo played very, very open attacking football, and you can say that that plays into Atalanta's hands. But what we've seen this season is Atalanta have scored a ton of goals against teams that also shut up shop as well. So I don't think it's that easy an explanation. They really did hit the ground running. It's as if they were never away. And let's see if they can keep this enthusiasm going. But a lot of people expect them to drop out of the top 4. I'm not so sure if this is the spirit with which that they're going to go and face these remaining 12 games.
Juventus then in action tomorrow, as you mentioned. These games come thick and fast. It's a game that's live on ESPN Plus. Gab, what's been the fallout? Who has been taking the brunt of the criticism after that poor display in the Coppa Italia final?
Well, look, obviously Sarri's taken the brunt of it, which is understandable because he's the manager. Although, frankly, you can pretty much take your pick because the forwards were all, I think, to a man poor. And the midfield's been all season, it has been one of the main issues, one of the main weaknesses, especially with Miralem Pjanic, another one who people say his head's been turned, or maybe he's just not playing as well. Maybe he's not as good as we thought he was. The interesting thing now, I think, for Sarri is people talk about how deep his squad is and how many options he has. The problem is having a deep squad, if you don't necessarily trust your players, or if when they come in they play badly, that's not going to help you much. So it's a case for him of getting Ramsey fit, just so he's got another body, another alternative, keeping Bernardeschi fit, making sure Dybala is capable of playing 2 games in 4 days without getting overly tired. And I think one of the single biggest discriminants is this Juve team needs to have a center forward, a real center forward. They have one in Gonzalo Higuain. He's got to get fit. And he's got to take up minutes, because with Higuain in there, it allows you for Cristiano Ronaldo to play his natural game, and then Cristiano becomes a lot more effective, and he can carry you, more often than he has been.
What's been said about Ronaldo, Gab?
I'm sorry?
What's been said about Ronaldo?
Well, look, he was obviously poor in the final. I think a lot of people, though, accept the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo playing as a center forward is not a good idea. It's not a good idea because he doesn't open up runs for the midfielders breaking into the box. It's not a good idea because he takes a lot of punishment lining up against 2 center backs. And do you want Cristiano at 35 years of age getting kicked all game long? Probably not. It's just not. It's not his game. And I think the understanding is that he needs to go back to playing where he has been, where he's a de facto center forward in some ways, because, he doesn't track back and he doesn't, go all the way wide, but he always starts from that wide position, cuts inside and shoots on goal or pops up at the far post. And he does that, about as well as anybody in the world. The funny thing with Ronaldo too is, and I think this has probably hurt him a little bit, is the whole time during the lockdown, you look at his Instagram feed, and there he is running all over Madeira, and there he is in his weight room at home, and with his shirt off, and he looks so fit. He's not match fit. He simply isn't, and it's unfair to expect him to be with the type of body he has. But I think what it tells you is that whatever work people were doing at home or sessions via Zoom or whatever, every player's body is different, and I think what's pretty evident is that Cristiano Ronaldo we saw in these first 2 games isn't the Cristiano Ronaldo in terms of fitness that we saw earlier this year.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.